Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. Enterprise AI isn't just a tool, it's the heartbeat of smart organizations like yours, helping to reinvent work to deliver higher growth, more customers, and better experiences. Join us as we discover how AI-powered work orchestration and automation is making things better for everyone: customers, employees, shareholders, and most importantly, you. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. In this episode, we'll be chatting with a fabulous team from McKinsey about an article they published on digital twins in supply chain. We have with us Ketan Shah, who's a partner in Chicago, Alberto Oca, who's a partner from Atlanta, and Lauren O'Neill, who's an associate partner from the McKinsey office in Atlanta also. I'm really excited to talk about this supply chain digital twin stories because this is very, very interesting. So welcome. I really appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
So first of all, while I've told everybody your titles, that doesn't go into what you all do and get to more information about you. So Ketan, can you kick us off and kind of give us an idea, a little bit more about you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But first of all, thanks, Michael, for inviting us. Like you said, this is a very important topic, and it's close and near to all our hearts as well. So happy to talk about this. I'm Ketan Shah. I'm a partner in our Chicago office. I'm the global co-lead for our planning service line. I used to kind of also to deliver, so I kind of span the entire supply chain. Prior to McKinsey, used to run a manufacturing company out of India. And then at McKinsey, I've been kind of involved with multiple transformation in the supply chain space.
Fantastic. Alberto?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Michael, for the opportunity. I'm a partner out of Atlanta, Georgia, with McKinsey. I'm part of the operations practice, and I do a lot of work with supply chain transformation, similar to Ketan, and I co-lead distribution operations, for the firm.
Fantastic. And Lauren?
Awesome. Thanks, Michael, for having us. My name is Lauren O'Neill, and I'm an associate partner also out of McKinsey's Atlanta office. I'm part of our operations practice and a data scientist by trade. My expertise is in enterprise-wide analytics transformations. Specifically, I'm an expert in digital twins and have led several supply chain digital twin transformation programs. And this is my absolute favorite topic. Looking forward to the discussion today.
Fantastic. So I want to start with talking about some of the challenges people have. So we look at digital twins. Maybe Ketan, you can lead us off and kind of give us a real base overview of how you guys view digital twins, and then we can go into talking a little bit more about it. So Ketan, can you kind of give us an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think a lot of kind of us experience digital twins in our daily life. We just don't know it. However, I do think from a supply chains point of view, what we see kind of across our clients and companies that we have kind of studied is there's a lot of value that is lost at the interfaces of the different functions within supply chain and outside of supply chain. So what I mean by that is within supply chain as in kind of demand planning, supply planning, transportation, logistics, and so forth, versus outside, which would be commercial planning, financial planning. And there's just so much value lost. Because people are kind of really focusing on localized optimums and KPIs versus really trying to understand the full implications of the decision that they are making. And so given the limitations that they have with technology, limitations of how collaborative each of the functions are, people leave a lot of value on the table. And so this is where I think clients are kind of now going and trying to uncover once they've optimize their own individual functions, really looking to say what's the next horizon for us and looking at digital twins to solve it.
Fantastic. So when you look at digital twins, at least given the what I know about it, because I am not personally in supply chain, but I have a very big interest in it. I know they can supply this they can offer this new look into the way your operations are working through it. But because organizations currently have a number of different tools that they work with, it can be difficult to integrate all of this together to get that view. What are the most significant challenges you guys are seeing in doing this integration, and how do you overcome them?
Big unlock here is first really viewing digital twins as not a replacement, right? As you described, as innovation layer that can sit on top and coexist with your existing supply chain management tools. That's really how we view it, as this, uh, if I even take a step back and then answer your question, Michael, we really think of digital twins as this interface that allows us to connect across the end-to-end supply chain for end-to-end visibility and the ability for simulation and optimization, really getting to that next level. And it's hard, as your question, got to, it's hard to connect across these different systems and tools. And that's really been, the blocker over the historical supply chain management history, and also the biggest unlock of digital twins. So it's both the hardest and I think the biggest payoff. And the hard pieces are, historically, if you look at your suite of supply chain management tools, you've got transportation management, planning tools, your warehouse. They're all separate tools, and they have different definitions of data. They have different data pipelining. They often live in completely different systems. And so in order to connect across all of those, what you really need, and what we see as the unlock, is you need forward-looking representatives across each of the functions and across each of these tools to come together and jointly prioritize what is my integrated architecture and what is my integrated data pipelining. And when you have that kind of cross-functional collaboration, that's what we see as the biggest unlock. The technology follows, but that collaboration and that alignment is really the big unlock. And the final thing I'll say with that is that collaboration, one of the things they can help with is cross-functional teams have different incentives and roadmaps, right? And so you need to make sure that you've got your warehousing and your manufacturing aligned on the same timeline for building that data architecture and on the same joint KPIs, that they're both marching to the same beat.
Maybe if I may add there, right? Just one thing is the common failure point on people that have kind of started working on digital twins is, if you're not focused on the value that you will create once you do this, it doesn't work, right? So if there is value that is identified at the boundaries of the different sub functions, if you are very clear what you will create jointly out of this, and you start working towards that, I think you can surmount all challenges.
So when you talk about the value that you're creating, what would say the top 2 or 3 that come to mind as maybe a standard, or kind of a one that would blanket most organizations?
I think you're always on state cost, quality, and I'll throw in also sustainability. And those often feel like they're pulled across each other, but the unlock is, how can I maximize my service level while minimizing my cost? And that's the biggest unlock you see, is that end-to-end cost to serve while reaching really ambitious service level targets, especially if you think about the increasing consumer requirements. And I'm thinking more of a consumer lens here, but the speed of delivery, that those expectations have really increased. So it's keeping with the customer expectations while reducing the cost.
The other thing I would add is, it also brings a level of transparency and visibility end to end that is unsurpassed, right? And specifically, what we're seeing a lot right now, and in the last, I would say, 2 years, is the need to pivot into situations, that require immediate action. And here's, the digital twins, right, can help not just simulate all these different scenarios, but really, push them to production and make those changes immediately, and seeing the impact, that Lauren was alluded to.
That makes a lot of sense. And going on that subject, you talk about needing to know this quickly, but also being able to understand and understanding, I guess, bring together all of that data in one place. Your article really went into the highlighting the ability to have these digital twins provide these real-time insights and predictive analytics. So we start looking and combining those type of things of very fast kind of information coming in, and then the analytics that you use to determine your next steps. How do you envision this capability transforming the decision-making processes within the organizations? Because it's one thing to have the data coming in and maybe action on it, but do you see that having this data in real time and with predictive analytics changing the way that organizations are actually operating?
Michael, that's a great question, right? Let me give you an analogy. I think I had said at the beginning, right, where we experience digital twins in our daily life. We just don't know it, right? So, for example, when I'm using an app to figure out what would it take for me to go from my home to my office, I use the Maps app to say, hey, roughly it takes between 50 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes. So at least I can use that for my planning purpose. The day that I actually set out on that journey, the app will also provide me 2 or 3 different routes that I can select, right? Based on my choice. Do I want to avoid tolls? What time is it taking, right? And things like that. So it's kind of giving me the ability to make better decisions. The third is, as I then pick a route and I embark on it, I might encounter traffic. And at that point, the app also tells me real time, here's how the traffic is building up. Here's maybe an alternate choice I make. And then as a human in the mix, I'm actually making the choice of whether to stay on my predetermined path or actually take a detour and kind of do what the app is suggesting to me. Digital twins will work exactly the same way, right? You're essentially creating a virtual copy in which to simulate those decisions and then be able to make really informed choices in real time. So that's kind of how I kind of use that app of a map analogy of the map app to kind of bring back to the digital twin. So for example, in manufacturing, right, you have oftentimes you kind of deal with multiple constraints. There's the output of a certain production line might be dependent on the output of a upstream production line. It could depend on the availability of raw materials, the quality release of raw materials. It could depend on kind of the maintenance status of the line that I'm kind of going to start. It could depend on the ability of the skilled workers and their availability as well. So there's a lot of things that are dependent. Now we, of course, plan for all of this. The day off, lots of things can be wrong. Quality release might come back and say, no, that can't be used. And now I need to adjust in real time. When you don't have a good system to tell you what your next best action is, operators will kind of make decisions on what they think is the best. They'll go by empirical kind of their experience. But I'm not saying experience is wrong, but it's oftentimes not optimal. Or you will wait and try and scramble and you'll call 10 people up and say, hey, what should I do now? And while you're kind of using up the very, let's say, expensive time, idle time on your resource, right? And so having a digital twin will really help you real time kind of make the adjustments, kind of get to the next best actions. And similarly on logistics, what's my alternate route? If something gets stuck, let's say in the Suez Canal, for example, right? And that has happened in the past. What is it that I do now, right? And what's my next best action? Really kind of thinking about our commitments to our customers as well, right? And that would be kind of just making sure we are not optimizing just one thing, because like in my map app, I said, maybe I want to optimize time, but I might also want to optimize cost. Maybe I want to optimize CO2 emissions. So I want to optimize the miles travel, right? So there's multiple objectives, and with digital twins, you can actually deal with multiple objectives as well. Hopefully that
Gotcha.
helps.
I like the map analogy for a couple different reasons, because let's take two specific angles on it. First, we all know, and especially if you've been in an area for a very long period of time, we're creatures of habit, and we tend to know we're going to take this route to go from point A to point B. And if it's at this time of day, maybe, okay, I've got a couple alternatives that I've taken in the past that I know work well. And we may question the map app on whether or not it's really accurate, because I know better. I've taken that route myself, and I believe that my route is superior to the one that's being presented to me on the map app. Not that it's ever happened to me personally, but I often find that by doing it my way, I end up going the longer route and taking more time. So having your personnel believe what they see and operate against it, I think would be one of the probably potential hurdles they have to get past. And the second, when you talk about the Suez Canal and something that happens where it's sort of out of your control and something that just happens, I think of, I mean, you live in Chicago, you have a huge snowstorm, and the snowstorm blocks everything up. But on the map from yesterday when you planned it, or 2 days ago when you planned it, everything looked fine. But today, everything goes red, right? It's all the routes are terrible, right? So understanding that getting that data in will actually help you. But if you don't have the ability to get the data in, either in real time or ahead of time, it may falsely provide you with some sense of security that, well, yeah, the Maps app says it's only going to take me 20 minutes. So, and when you know darn well, you look outside, there's 4 feet of snow on the ground, it's going to take a lot longer than 20 minutes. So how do you approach organizations who may be finding themselves in those situations where they have this great digital twin, but perhaps either have personnel who are less than receptive to some of the new technology to be able to really adopt it well, and then adapt to perhaps some of these things where you don't have the metrics feeding back in?
Science can do amazing things, but you can only go as far as a human believes it. And so you're spot on, right? Like, you need to bring the operators along and prove to them that there's value, or else it's going to be a cool model that sits on a shelf. So you're absolutely spot on. And what you're also kind of identifying is this feedback loop where if your model's not good enough and you don't have real time data, or you have a gap, it's not going to be followed. You're going to look out your window, you're going to see 4 feet of snow, and you're going to say, yeah, I told you this Maps is never right, right? So you need to make sure that your science is really up to snuff, and that you can prove in those scenarios to your operators that there's real value. And I think supply chain's really ripe for this because supply chain operators are very analytical. The history of operations research, of leveraging data for real-time optimization, and even BI tools, Excel, like supply chain's really the intersection of analytics and operations. And so these are roles that are ripe and excited to leverage new tools. You need to bring along and make sure that everyone trusts it, and you have to bring a tool that's trustworthy. But it really can unlock real-time speed, and that's when you get excitement. So if your operators know that there's value because I'm not having to calculate the square footage to my location, I'm trying to take this map analogy a little far, but when I can do it quicker, right, then they trust. And so what I've seen is when you'd have a planner, for example, who historically has had to manually transcribe all of their information from their suppliers into a single tool, and you give them the capability that that's automatically done as part of your twin and your data pipelining, then they're excited. Then they have time to do strategic decision-making and what-if scenarios, and you've just proven value to them in speed. So that's one of the key unlocks I've seen is really getting operators excited from speed of delivery.
On that point, to further elaborate on what Lauren mentioned, right? Look, digital twin is a term that a lot of people, organizations still don't understand what it means, right? But in the end, to prove the value, right, and going to the point of speed, right, and impact, we always look at it, from a use case standpoint, right? And in the end, what you want is something that is comprised within a short amount of time, right? Let's say, 12 to 14 weeks, right? So whoever is working with you, let's say in an inventory optimization scenario, inbound, outbound logistics, which might be a problem, and you want to have more visibility and the opportunity, just to make quick decisions and see the impact, the cost benefit trade-offs. It is very important, just to show that is actually, driving the impact that it was estimated to drive, right? So being able, just to get the people that are going to be using it, right, along the journey, co-creating with them, and also, just doing it fast, right, to keep the momentum going, is what we have also, just proven, to be really impactful.
That makes sense.
That's a great point that money talks, right? Speed talks, but money, if you can prove the value quickly, then you've got people excited. That's a great point.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that's really good. So we talk about money, we talk about speed, all those things are good. But that brings up the potential for either moving too fast or trying to save too much. That could introduce risk to all that stuff. So with the potential that digital twins have to do this optimization and mitigate some risk, what kind of strategies should companies be looking at in order to really enhance the resilience against these potential supply chain disruptions?
Yeah, let me take that, Michael. Look, supply chain disruptions, we all know have become a consistent reality, right? Specifically, after COVID. But, mainly driven, by all these wide swings, that, we all have witnessed in demand patterns, rising costs, growing geopolitical tensions, and also climate change. Specifically, on this note, right, all these catastrophic weather events that somehow are also getting lately more acute, not just here in the U.S., which has always been an area or a country severely impacted by, but also in other countries like, my whole country, right? In Spain, specifically in Valencia, with this cold drop that put a huge and important region out of commission for several weeks, right? So disruptions are not a matter of or if, but when, where, and by how much, right? Our McKinsey Global Institute, found that on average, right, companies experience a disruption or vulnerability, that are usually 1 to 2 months in a duration every 3.7 years, right? And in the consumer sector, for example, the financial fallout of these disruptions, Michael, over a decade is likely to equal 30%. So you're asking about resilience, right? So building resilience into the operations and the strategies that, are going to be needed, for these companies and to weather, these disruptions and maintain stability is going to be paramount. Now, the question is, what are the options that we have out there, to face these headwinds, right? And also that can help organizations to easily sense and pivot into the rapid decision making that, we were talking about earlier, right? So you heard Lauren and Ketan, talking about digital twins coming in play, right? They can help organizations design the highly resilient supply chains by leveraging what we're discussing here, which is all these use cases, rapid what-if scenario analysis, right? And create really high-fidelity representations of the supply chain, right? Because you're going to be able to model, all the constraints, capacities, capabilities, and in the end, create all this in a safe space sandbox, right? For, the technology savvy audience, right? And in order to test, the impact of these disruptions on the network, right? So now imagine, that, you can collect all these potential iterations, right, for all these changes that you could make, right? And I'm talking like manufacturing and or, warehouse labor shifts, distribution center, typical DC storage capacity problems that I may have in my dry, in my cooler, or frozen areas, availability of my carriers, to pick up my product and deliver it. And then I tested all those demand spikes against all those permutations of potential or possible network setups. So that is amazing, right? If I can do this and rapidly identify, what could be a network, setup, the right network setup or configuration that will optimize my ability to serve that demand spike, I'm gold. The other thing, that, basically digital twins and the strategies, right, our clients, should also think about is how to leverage those, for, the examples that, we started to touch on earlier, right? For instance, like, think about it's a Tuesday afternoon, right? And the weather forecast is anticipating a severe storm or cold system, right, that is coming to one of your states, where you have operations, right? And let's say in this case, for the sake of an example, you have a manufacturing facility that makes fresh bread daily, right? And then you have something like, what happened in Texas, right? A couple of years ago, right? Where you have a severe weather that swept the U.S., back then and put it out of commission, right? With the digital twin, right? You will be able to rapidly run a simulation scenario of potentially, let's say, increasing capacity at a different bakery or manufacturing facility, right? That, could be in the same state or adjacent, right? And then be able, just to serve or even produce that production, what you need to serve the area that is being impacted, right? And then see if it is feasible, how much, you could do. And then literally, if the feasibility, just works out, boom, push the product, directly to production, and then, be able, just to fix that issue that if you would not have the digital twin, then, the storm hits and now you can't serve the product, right? So the potential, that, this can have, to build resiliency within supply chain organizations and help our clients offset, I would say disruptions like this is unsurpassed, right?
What's interesting to me is you brought this up is these situations that occur. For example, you talk about a storm, you talk about something else. Digital twins are not just creating a one-time what-if scenario. This is a continual thing, right? I mean, this is not something you just do once and put it on the shelf. This is a more continual thing of optimizing and replanning. How frequently do organizations do this generally?
Well, organizations, the ones that are embarking on this journey, right? Because Michael, to be honest, right, there's no right now software tool off the shelf, right, that can do this, right? You got to configure it, right? And again, all the vendors are now, trying to solve, this paradigm because they see that is needed, right? But what you need to think about is the ones that already started, deploying some of these use cases, right? And we have worked, with a couple, well, more than a couple, right? But in specific, I'm thinking a couple of use cases that I know Lauren specifically will relate to. They're running these scenarios, right? Let's say inventory, right? All the time on a daily basis, right? Because you're going to be able, just to see, right, what is the impact based on, let's say, the demand that I'm seeing at this specific retail store in this city life, right? So now is instead of like just going, let's say, through my typical, replenishment model that I send, my trucks, to that retail store, let's say every day or every 2 days, now is maybe, I shouldn't do it, right? Because I have enough, and then what I need to do is shift it, to another location, right? And I can make those decisions live and then see what is the impact, in terms of dollars, in terms of, service levels and so forth, right? So it's almost like something that is going to be table stakes in a few years, right? If you really want to, just bring a flawless and frictionless, customer experience, and maintaining, of course, and having visibility of your total landed cost.
Lauren, do you want to add anything to that?
All the time. I completely agree with Alberto. You can be a resiliency engine that is running these scenarios continuously and testing all of the different potential, disruptions, the weather, changes in demand, all of the different potential, impacts you can imagine. And you can see what can my current supply chain handle and where does it break? And how can I actually create a more resilient supply chain before even those incidents occur? And you can only do that where you've got this simulation engine running. That's really best in class.
Talk about best in class and sort of the future of this. We're going to continue to see this whole supply chain digital twin concept evolve, right? And as we see with all of the generative AI stuff that happens so quickly, and we start seeing this technology infusing what we're doing here. What might be the next thing on the horizon for digital twins in terms of efficiency, sustainability, customer satisfaction? There's got to be more coming. Maybe not right now, but based on what you guys can see in the technology that's we have at hand and what's coming in the future, what do you see is next?
Yeah, maybe let me kind of take that question. I think, Michael, what we are seeing, and I think kind of going back to the question that you asked earlier, which is how real is real time, right? And I would say right now, with the limitations that we have, it is near real time at best. Can it be real time in the sense that every single moment, I like the map app, which is as real time as it gets? Can we have that for supply chain digital twins as well. I think so that to me, with more computing power, with more shared data, with better platforms, I think that would probably be the next iteration of it. Now, I want to kind of acknowledge that supply chain and technology in the last 5, 6 years, and especially given a boost in the arm with COVID, they have come a long ways. But I think there's still more to. So that was one. I think it's just kind of become more real time. Second piece that I would say extends a little bit to kind of how we work, and then there's technology. The piece is around how collaborative and how trustworthy are we with each other. And so like digital twins really work when everyone's trusting each other. There's a single source of truth. We are all working off the same page. And so once we kind of start breaking down those not trusting each other barrier, I would say that would kind of create more value. And then if you kind of then take that further, the next iteration of that would be actually trusting your partners, which means that can I trust my suppliers? What do I share openly with my suppliers? Now, openly doesn't mean in a public domain, but what is it that is relevant to my suppliers? And what is it that's relevant to my customers? And being able to kind of extend beyond the four walls and kind of making digital twins, not just a digital twin of your company, but really extending beyond, will start unlocking even more value, because there is definitely value between companies that is also left on the table because we are not necessarily trusting of each other as partners, or we're trying to maximize our own at the expense of the total. So that's kind of probably the second piece that I would say. And then I would say, look, as digital twins become smarter and smarter, can we then trust the digital twins to actually make a lot of the decisions automatically, right, within parameters? I'm not saying like just kind of leave the systems to make all the decisions and we have no say in the matter, but there might be within certain mins and or within certain bounds of decision making, you allow the system to make the right choices because you have enough, right? And this is where things like reinforcement learning and kind of bringing that in will allow us to actually kind of really focus the human on, like Lauren, I think, said earlier, on the more strategic aspects, the more holistic choices, the more exception management, more thinking about what else could we be doing differently, right? Because that's where humans excel, right? And so those are, I think, things that come to my mind in terms of where to go next. But I do feel like there's just been so much progress over the last 5 years in supply chain. And I'm very excited about kind of where the next 10 years will be in supply chain as well.
I agree. We have some really interesting technology that has come. I love the concept of maybe taking that digital twin ecosystem to the next level, having partners who can trust and share certain aspects that do affect their other trading partners in ways that allow them to not only run simulations ahead of time to see which partners can supply and manage that flow, but also to be able to say, listen, we are expecting this, which has affected this, and this will affect you, maybe not today, but maybe in X amount of days or months or whatever it is, because of the way that the activities are flowing, to allow your trading partners then to make rapid adjustments to their own production or supplying. So that's a really great idea. Hopefully we'll see that sooner rather than later. By the way, I absolutely love the idea that you have of the map, because it is a digital twin that we all are very familiar with and understand really instinctively. Now we look at our map on our phone and we are able to map things out, and that whole concept of trusting it and the reinforcement that we get by leveraging it. I think it's a great analogy. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Delighted to.
All right. Well, listen, that's all the time we have today, but thank you so much, Ketan, Alberto, and Lauren, for joining us today. Really informative on this. I will leave a link for the article for folks to read through. I suggest we barely touched a number of different topics within this article. So I really suggest if supply chain your thing, you need to go read this article, because it really is very, very informative and very insightful. Well, thank you very much, guys, for joining us.
Michael,
Thank you
thanks
for the opportunity.
from our side as well. And really thank you for the opportunity for all of us to kind of speak on a topic which we are all very, very passionate about, and really investing our time also to kind of grow how supply chains kind of will operate in the future. So really thankful for the opportunity and look forward to many more discussions.
Thank you for listening to Transform Now, the podcast from SS&C Blue Prism. You can find all of our episodes on your favorite podcast channel, as well as YouTube. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of enterprise AI, subscribe now. The future of work is here.